Thank you, Jacqueline. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to our people out online as well. We're so happy to be together in community. My name is Lorian Kennedy. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm your service leader this morning. And for anyone new, I bid you welcome this morning. You are particularly welcome. We're super happy that you found your way here. Please check out our website too for information and sign up with your email address to get timely information about our events, or you can sign up at our welcome book at the back. So this morning we're going to be hearing about an interesting and inspiring project started by a former member, Susan Burwash, in her new home on Pender Island, BC. It's one way Susan found to forge new connections and bolster positive emotions. We all need those, in both those receiving tokens of appreciation, bright spots, as well as giving them. I look forward to seeing how this works. But before we begin, let's pause to remind ourselves that Edmonton, or Amisquatchie Waskahigan, its Cree name, meaning Beaver Hills House, is on Treaty 6 territory. It's the traditional home of diverse Indigenous people in their, including the Cree, Blackfoot, Métis, Nakota Sioux, and many others. In the spirit of reconciliation and decolonization, we express our solidarity with Indigenous communities in their fight for self-determination. And we recognize that we all have a role in learning about the past and present realities and doing our part. And we've begun, as Sarah mentioned earlier, to develop a relationship with descendants of the people who lived on this land with our Beyond Land Acknowledgement series. There will be more activities in the future. For our opening words, these are adapted from Erica Hewitt. To encourage means to hearten, to impart strength and confidence. This is our work as a religious community, to encourage one another, to be bold in engaging the world around us, as well as what scares us internally, to give one another the confidence and heart to live as fully as possible. And if you put the next slide on, there's a part for the congregation to read as I light the candle. And there are 2 slides here, just so you know. With full hearts, if you'd read together with me. With full hearts, we affirm our relationship to one another. We recognize our agency and our connective power, and we accept our responsibility to be bold and courageous. This chalice, symbol of all we are, all that we have done together, and all that we will be as our shared ministry encourages those within and beyond our walls. Thank you. And now we have a hymn, Mother of All, and you're free to stand, get your voice fully engaged, or some like me will sit. Thank you. Oh, I'll get us a hymn book if we want to be able to see the words. Or you can just look at the screen. Candles of joy and concern are vital spots of light when we let each other know of difficult times or moments of joy. So I invite you to share these with us in person, or add your candle to the chat and I will read it out, or you can wave your hand and our text will let us know if there's someone who wants to speak. And if the text could bring the Zoom people onto the screen so we can see who's there. You can also light a silent candle. So if you'd like to come and speak first, the microphone is on. So you can just come and speak first and then light your candle. I'm not seeing any from the online group, so I'm going to light one more candle for all those. Oh, I realize I don't need to come to the mic. For all those joys and concerns that remain unexpressed and are in their hearts. If you'd join us in the affirmation. May the light of these candles inspire us to use our power to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to serve the spirit of truth in loving affection and trusting hope. And now we have a special candle from Sarah, who is going to speak to our stewardship candle. And I'll light it for you, Sarah, while you're doing that.
11 Things I Love About Westwood by Sarah E. McEwen. The principles. They encouraged me to focus on what's important in my life, especially number one. Congregational votes. Whatever the issue, I have learned that Westwood is always right. The company. So many good and interesting people here on a regular basis for me to enjoy. Compassionate connections, a volunteer labor of love that works on my growing edge. The music, singers, choir, pianists, musicians, concerts, performers. It cheers me up to be in this place when that's happening. The independence, no layers of Unitarian Universalist hierarchy telling us what to do or how we should be. The reconciliation group. As someone who doesn't always care to work in groups, this one is awesome. The building reminds me of my childhood church with a beautiful bathroom as a bonus. The hugs. Otherwise, as a solo liver, I could go for weeks without being touched. The opinions. Westwood are keen on voicing them to each other, and though I am free to take what I like and leave the rest and still feel welcome here. Consequently, these 11 things become reasons for my annual financial donation to the church, and Westwood is in my will. And following this, I'd really love to hear what you love about Westwood, leading you to offer your time and talents.
Thank you, Sarah. That was wonderful. We'll have to put that out in the newsletter if you agree. So we have another hymn, For All the Beauty We Have Known, number 326. It's such a pleasure to have Susan back with us again. She's a previous Westwood member who moved away for her work in 2011. We're both occupational therapists, and we're bonded through our enthusiasm for things technical, especially Macintosh, and looking for innovation in our field. She went on to become an occupational therapy professor. We share an interest in mental health support for individuals and the community at large. So Susan has recently retired, and she now lives on Pender Island in BC, but she remains just as committed to learning and promoting mental health. So Susan, if you'd like to go on up to the podium, I'm really keen to hear what you could tell us. Thank you.
New iPad, so trying to figure out how to turn it on in a different way. Well, I have to start by saying I'm so delighted to be back in this wonderful space with some wonderful people that I know and some wonderful people that I wish I knew and that I hope I'll get a chance to visit with as we potluck afterwards. It has been a long time and it's really wonderful to be back. So this came about, me doing a talk came about because Lorian and I were talking about something. I'm not sure what started it, but she said, you wouldn't happen to have a sermon up your sleeve, would you? And I went, well, I don't think of myself as sermonizing, but I'm sure other people do. So I do have something I could talk about that I'm sort of in the midst of and learning from. And certainly the last 3 years have been a time of deep learning for all of us. So today I'm going to talk about bright spots in dark times. And we could go to the next slide. So you're thinking, what is a bright spot? And we know about the dark times. So a bright spot is something like this that you can pin on to a shirt or a jacket or a hat. Okay, so, and they're made out of felt and buttons and glue and drawn on and stitched on and all sorts of things. So that's what a bright spot is, and the Bright Spot project was something that I started. If we can go to the next slide. I started it because I had bought a house on Pender about 5 years ago, and then I retired just as COVID started. And I had bought a house on Pender because I felt it had a wonderful community. And then COVID started and everyone disappeared into their houses. Pender is an island that has a lot of older people living on it. And so everyone was being very cautious, or most people were being very cautious. And as people retreated, I think some things happened that were things I was seeing in other parts of the world. So if we could go to the next slide. So I know I felt very isolated. I was very lucky because I have a sister who lives on Pender Island and my former PhD supervisor lives there and a few other people. So they sometimes would trust me enough to spend time with me in a very large space as we were really sheltering. So I was isolated. I saw other people talking about isolation. What also happened is we all, or many of us, went online, and as the dialogue about masking and vaccines and other such things exploded, I saw this community that I had moved to for its beautiful sense of community. I saw a lot of unkindness happening. So I thought, well, I'm new, I don't know anyone, I don't know if I can make a difference, but this doesn't seem like a good thing. I also had been following for many, many years positive psychology, and especially the work around how to increase happiness and health through gratitude. There's a fellow named Andrew Huberman who does podcasts, and I listened to one of his podcasts, and he was summarizing the evidence on gratitude. And what he told me was, what I listened to in this website was a webcast, was that our kind of understanding of gratitude about, at the end of the day, name 5 things that you're grateful for, remind yourself of what you cherish, was not very effective compared to one other practice, and that is the practice of thanking other people, because to be thanked, and to be thanked specifically, has the highest impact of gratitude practices on the recipient, and also even on observers of this act of giving gratitude. So I thought, oh, okay, so we shouldn't all be looking inside and going, well, today I'm grateful for this. Like, I have my gratitude bracelet on and I do this practice, but so I really thought, what can I do to use that knowledge? And what can I do using the skills I have? And I have always been a creator of things. I love to make glass beads, so I do that. I love to make jewelry. I like, just playing with things. And some of them I have some skills and knowledge in, some of it I don't. And actually, we'll talk about that a little bit later, that I picked something that I had 0 experience with. And that might have been a good thing, or it might not have been a good thing. I don't know. So the next slide. So this is a long-term project. It started in winter of 2021. I gathered up the materials and taught myself enough to be able to, kind of show people that it's really easy to do this. And it continues on, and it takes a hiatus over the summer because people are too busy doing wonderful things in the summer and they don't want to hang out and do slow stitching, and that's okay. The first summer that happened, I was like, oh, this is a failure. And then I went, no, this is a seasonal thing and you have to honor the seasons. So it's ongoing, and I don't know how it will carry on, or where it might move to. And in a way, I'm hoping maybe a bit of it moves to Edmonton. So next slide. So just to locate Pender Island, for those of you that don't know, it's the furthest south of the southern Gulf Islands. So it's located between Vancouver and Vancouver Island in the Salish Sea. It has year-round population, as I said, about 2,000 people, and then in the summer it's explodes to a lot of people. There are 2 islands joined by a bridge, and South Pender tends to keep to themselves, and North Pender kind of looks at South Pender and says, oh, you're being, standoffish sometimes. We have 2 grocery stores, a pharmacy, a couple of restaurants, a wonderful bookstore, a fantastic community hall that's solar powered. And I just found out in the last couple of weeks, quite a few secret Unitarians, so I'm excited about that. But no Unitarian church. It's about a 30-minute ferry ride from Vancouver Island, Sydney, and about an hour and a half to Swassen. So it's nicely positioned to be quiet, but also if you need noise or need something that isn't on the island, you can get there fairly quickly. Next slide. So bright spots are essentially, let me find one of the really cool and quirky ones. They're essentially pieces of felt, and sometimes when you have someone who has a textile background, they're pieces of wool that have been punched in. They are typically bright, well, they are always bright colors, but I tried to find a diversity of bright colors, because if I had gone with my druthers, they'd all be purple and hot pink. So I had to, move out of my color comfort zone. At their most easiest, they're just glued together, and sometimes a button sewed to kind of keep the whole assemblage together, and then a pin or a brooch fitting is sewn on the back. So something that I could still do, I have what's called degenerative cervical myelopathy, which means my spinal cord has been compressed at a couple of different levels, and it's created some numbness in my hands. So when I started out, I was, I hope I can still do this. And it turns out I can, and glue is my best friend as well. So that's what a bright spot is. So how did I get started? I put out a call to the 4 people I knew on the island and said, would you like to come to a big space? There's a room that you can rent that's right looking over the water on at a place called Hope Bay, which I'm sure is, I didn't really have that in my head as being, let's start this at Hope Bay, but and so I kind of had a meeting. 4 of us came to the first meeting, and I think that's the biggest gathering in person we've had to date. And I talked about the research, and I talked about, wouldn't it be nice to, and these were all people who were new to the island, or newish. And I said, here's what I'm thinking, what do you think? And everyone was very excited. And then we were at the point of, oh, well, let's make enough for everyone on the island. And I thought, okay, let's back this down a little bit. So we started working, and often it was in pairs or triads, always in a largish space so that we could stay far apart, almost always masked. And so we worked on it over that first winter. And then, as I said, the summer came and nobody wanted to do this anymore. And I was like, I'm a failure as a public health promoter. And then I went, yeah, okay, get over yourself. So we would meet. We're now meeting at a wonderful little coffee shop that's built out of 2 sea cans, and is all these beautiful bright colors, and is owned by an artist that is really excited by the project. So that's where we work now. And I just bring the supplies in a rolling toolkit. Have toolkit will travel, toolbox will travel. And we meet for maybe an hour and a half and each make a couple of bright spots. And now I leave them sitting all around. So if anyone comes by our table and sort of expresses interest, I encourage them to pick them up and look at what they are and get potentially interested in either taking one, and the taking isn't for yourself, we'll talk about that, or in making one, or in taking to make to give. So any of those are things I'm happy about. Next is, and I think I titled this Lessons I've Learned, and I think it's really lessons I'm still learning, as with any project. But see, these are some of the takeaways for me. And I should know this as a therapist, as a retired therapist, just because you're ready and you want to do something doesn't necessarily mean other people are ready. And the readiness might be to come out of their hidey hole, because it was we needed to be in our hidey holes. Oh, next slide. Sorry. So, in the process of doing this, I found out that one person's husband was undergoing cancer treatment. So that person wasn't going to come out if there were more than just me, or maybe me and one other person. I found out that one other person had a fantastic social life and was like ultra extrovert, and she didn't really need this project the way the introverts that were involved did, and I definitely am one of those folks. So think about what people are ready to do. The second one is doing a simple craft can be intimidating. There are people, the minute you say art or craft or create, their brain does this thing that shuts them down. And especially, I think, if I say, oh, it's so simple, then it's like, whoa, if I'm not having a good time with this in terms of making it do what I want it to do, then, and it's simple, then, so not necessarily saying it's simple, saying, you know, it is, it has not too many steps to it, and it can be done in many, many ways. The other thing that I learned is that one of the people in the group was a fiber artist, and she wanted to make masterpieces. And so she would spend 2 hours making one of these pins. And I said, if we're going to make 2,000 of these at 2 hours per pin, we might have to extend our lives a little bit further than we anticipate living just to get it all done. So those were two things I learned pretty early on. I learned that my PhD supervisor, who was one of the people in the group, is one of those people that loves art and appreciates artists and is terrified doing projects like this. And I was like, oh, I thought appreciation equaled comfort, but it doesn't necessarily. I learned that people love to be thanked as we started giving these out. And we give them out with a little card that has a kind of word cloud with appreciation and Pender and bright spots and wonderful and, you know, gratitude. And then on the back it says, you're my bright spot on Pender because, and then you write specific things. So people love that. People, their eyes well up. They're just so taken aback because that hadn't been happening as much as maybe before. So be sincere, be specific with your gratitude. Yeah, that's been a really fun part, and to then see people wearing the bright spots around, and it's like other people going, where'd you get that? Oh, well, it's part of the PBS, Pender Bright Spots. Don't be too ready to give up on a project. I really could have given up many times, and I just decided I'm staying with this. This idea just feels like it is going to have some legs at some point. And then glimmers. So sometimes something isn't the big, massive amount of joy and success that you think it's going to be, but there's a glimmer there. And I guess that's why I didn't give up. There was a glimmer there that I thought, you know, just watching those people that I have given a bright spot to, I feel like, yeah, this is worthwhile, even if it ends up only, you know, 50 people get bright spots on the island. So those are some of the things that I have learned to date. And next slide. And what I would like to do is invite you after the service. I brought a box of bright spots. So if you have someone that has been your bright spot and you would like to take one and give them that to someone that has been particularly enlightening and joy creating and giving for you, I would love you to take one. And the makers on Pender are all aware that I'm in Edmonton giving away bright spots, so we'll make more. And the other invitation is to come to a workshop in July 16th, where we're Serendipity Service, where we will make some bright spots. So if you are someone who doesn't clam up when you hear make things with your hands, or even if you are, but you can get over it. I would love to bring materials in my toolbox and offer you some bright spots.
Is that a Serendipity Service here?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So thank you again so very, very much, Lorian, for inviting me to come and talk about this. And I guess it did sort of sound a little bit like a sermon, and I hope it didn't feel too much like a sermon. Thank you so much.
Another hymn, Let It Be a Dance, number 311. I've gotten very loud. So as Susan told us, she's going to be back on July 16th for a Serendipity time slot. So that won't be a service, it'll be this workshop, playing shop. So I hope you'll come in then and bring your friends to join in. And after the service today, you can stay and have coffee and visit with each other. And for people on Zoom, if they want to visit with each other, that's okay too. You are invited to do that. So I have a reading for Extinguishing the Candles. It's by Tom Shade, and it's called A Power at Work in the Universe. And I wonder if you could turn the volume down just a little bit, because we're getting a bit of an echo. Thank you. Is that loud enough for everybody? Okay. My friends, there is a power at work in the universe. It works through human hands. but it was not made by human hands. It's a creative, sustaining, and transforming power, and we can trust that power with our lives, with our ministries. It will sustain us whenever we take a stand on the side of love, whenever we take a stand for peace and justice, whenever we take a risk. Trust in that power. We are together, held by that power. And we'll have a postlude now. Thank you.